Recently, we discussed how to spot a political liar. In politics, most leaders have some degree of hypocrisy. We look forward to the day where we get to swap out that video because leaders have started to embrace using green energy development to lower taxes through green energy sales that fund government. Kind of like a petrostate that has low or no taxes because they have vast oil reserves, except in our case, you replace fossil fuel sales with green energy sales and push fossil fuels out of the market. The worst of these political hypocrites is the reactionary grifter. While many Democrats may have the sense to be ashamed of the hypocrisy in the bills they vote for, they may also feel that a bad bill that does a little good is better than no bill at all. Reactionary grifters, on the other hand, are simply the most shameless of hypocrites, and this is about them. While Trump is the classic standard bearer for the reactionary grifter who shamelessly weaponizes the suffering of older generations, who have lost their retirements to neoliberalism and trickle-down economics, and rural communities that have been cutted by Wall Street with the help of neoliberal and trickle-down economics, it is important to point out that any part of the political spectrum can be traumatized into engaging in reactionary idolatry. To that end, let's look at Jill Stein and the Green Party's left-wing grift, not only as a party that cares about addressing climate change and the environment, but also a party of peace. Jill Stein has openly stated that she is the peace and green candidate, but her actions show that these are not her priorities. As we did with the other candidates, we call out leaders on the separation between their stated goals and the choices they make. While at this point, more and more people in corporate media are no longer sane-washing Trump or his openly fascistic rhetoric, Jill Stein has gotten a pass. While she is openly putting herself forward as a spoiler candidate, she knows and states that there is no real chance of her winning, and so does the press. This means that again, the corporate media is selling clicks, trying to turn a threat to democracy like Trump into a will we save democracy or fascism horse race. And so the media covers Stein's threat to Harris' candidacy rather than giving Stein's actions and stated goals any scrutiny, as they should with any presidential candidate. Jill Stein proudly states that her goal is to punish the Democratic Party for its support of Israel and hand the election to Trump. This means that she is in effect a Trump supporter. So we must look at what Trump's policies are compared to Harris in regard to Jill Stein's principles. Trump has criticized the Biden administration for not supporting Israel enough and says in effect that he would give them a green light on whatever Netanyahu wants because, in his words, Bibi is doing a good job but is being held back by the Biden administration. This means that the wars Netanyahu is likely starting to avoid criminal charges would get a blank check from Trump. Bibi has released videos echoing this sentiment about being held back, which some see as a tacit endorsement of Trump. Why does a peace candidate who claims to be supportive of the people of Palestine want to proudly throw the election to someone who criticizes the Biden administration for not doing enough to facilitate the violence and instability in the Middle East? Trump, on the environment, wants to destroy the EPA. How can a candidate who supports the environment reconcile this? Trump's energy policy can be summed up in 3 words: drill, baby, drill. How does a green energy advocate reconcile Trump's climate change denialism with her stated principles in support of green energy? Many Trump policies are direct attacks on the social safety net. How does a candidate that claims to care about economic justice, who wants a people's economy of adequate safety nets, reconcile her support of a candidate who seeks to destroy these institutions? At this point, her language seems downright Orwellian. We will not go into all of them here, but if you compare Jill Stein's stated beliefs on her campaign website and Trump's policies in Project 2025, which any responsible presidential candidate would familiarize themselves with, it is hard to understand how someone who says they believe in these things could want to throw the election to a nakedly fascist supremacist who wants to do more to facilitate the war crimes of the Netanyahu administration and is also working to stir up division and domestic terrorism to retake the White House to avoid a possible prison sentence. Not unlike what Bye Bye is doing to avoid justice. What we can do now is look further at her actions to find out what she is actually about, in addition to her desire to throw the election to Trump. While of course denying that she is a spoiler candidate, if she were not such a nakedly shameless reactionary grifter, one might tell her to pick a lane. She has refused to criticize Putin, who has invaded his neighbors and threatens others while engaging in war crimes. When finally pushed by criticism to condemn him, her words fall flat. She has taken the time to engage with Putin, sitting at his table along with the right-wing grifter Michael Flynn, who had to plead the fifth when asked if January 6th violence was justified and has been alleged to be involved in the planning and execution of January the 6th. She openly supports Trump, a candidate who cultivates the grievances of Christian nationalists and who attempted in his first administration to execute what he called a Muslim ban, while she is claiming to be a champion of the Muslim community. In reality, she has weaponized the suffering and frustrations of the Muslim community to put herself forward as a false idol of promise for a greener, better future, justice and peace, while being bankrolled by far-right billionaire Trump supporters and funding networks, while hiring a right-wing consulting firm run by a suspected January the 6th rioter. Some have said that you cannot understand unless you have lost someone to the IDF. To try to marginalize the voices that call out Jill Stein on her hypocrisy, and this is simply a furtherance of Jill Stein's grift. In 2003, the family that is responsible for the funding trusts of the Federation lost a member to the IDF when Rachel Corrie, an unarmed peace activist, was crushed protecting a home in Gaza from an IDF bulldozer, a demolition in violation of international law. For all of the grief that this event caused the family, Rachel and the ones she left behind her would never wish to see suffering brought to the children of Palestine, Israel, US, Ukraine, or any other nation. It is not the fault of the powerless that a corrupt government does not respond to their wishes because the leaders want to escape accountability, as with Trump, Bibi, and Putin. Instead, those leaders choose to continue the suffering, to remind everyone to hate each other and to prevent any peaceful solution that could free up their people to prosecute those leaders' crimes. Nations have a right to protect themselves from the aggression of their neighbors, but we should never focus bad and corrupt leadership with the will of the working class families whose lives they control. For all of Trump's faults as an authoritarian, fascist, grifter and liar, he at least admits when he pressed his designs on doing evil. Jill Stein does not own the results of her real beliefs while claiming to be a peacemaker and advocate for the unrepresented, who are the very people who will suffer most if she gets her way and ushers in another Trump administration. Netanyahu bankrolls and turns a blind eye to the actions of Hamas because they serve his authoritarian and ethno-nationalist agenda, just as Trump and his donor class bankroll Jill Stein as she turns a blind eye to Trump's authoritarian ethno-nationalist agenda. She does this in part, we assume because of her ties to Russia, but mostly because it gives her power. After all, idols do not care about the suffering of the people they claim to protect, as long as that suffering can lead to greater power.